So this will be my interpretation or my read on Venus. So this will be Venus, right? Okay. So Venus is the planet of attraction. She is the planet of love. Venus would represent how we express our love, but it's also how we want to receive love, you know? When I say Venus is attraction, I mean in the sense that like Venus would represent like what we attract to us, but it also represents what we're attracted to, you know? It's like Venus is a two-way. Venus is two ways, you know, to give and to take. Like, this is why Venus can represent also our finances. So Venus rules Libra and Taurus. So in Taurus, Venus would be governing finances, but when it's in Libra, Venus would be governing love, relationships, and things of that nature. So a person's Venus indeed could show us how they are in the relationship, in the sense of like what they seek in a relationship, how they go about approaching relationships also. And then financially speaking, Venus can also show us our luck or just finances, you know, it doesn't even have to be our lucky finances, but like in a sense how we get money. And then Venus would also represent our values, like the things we value. Venus also represents like our pleasures, so you know, things we tend to engage in to bring pleasure into our lives. So Venus is very earthly in her nature, you know. I feel like we can even go as far as to say, I wonder if we can, but I want to say like we can even go as far as to say that Venus is like an evolved Earth in a sense. Oh, you know, it's like, I don't know, physically speaking, because I've never been to Venus, but astrologically speaking, Venus is all about, you know, attraction. She's about beauty, pleasure. Venus also represents our desires, you know. Someone's Venus can also show them, like in a sense, I already said what we value, because you know Venus is so like that. So the second house in a person's chart and Venus would, you know, tie down to the things that they value and also their finances and things of that nature, because you know, Venus rules Taurus and Taurus rules the second house. So Venus is well connected to the second house. And it's very interesting because even though we are in a sense like it might seem like we're just you know, a mix of zodiac signs, in actuality we have all of you know, all of the zodiacs, because each zodiac sign falls in a house. So like the house that the sign that falls into your second house in a sense can show how one tends to attract wealth and finances to them, but it's also like the things that this person values, you know, it's like your value. So Venus also shows us a person's love style, like how they love, you know, like the 5 love languages, and I would assume that the 12 zodiac signs would fall into one of those categories of the 5, you know, 5 love languages. Venus, Venus, Venus. Venus is very feminine in her nature. Like Venus, like if I'm to talk about like the deity, or like the goddess, I guess you can say. I'm not really sure which goddesses she correlates with, even though I should know this. But you know, Venus, she has her power and her ability to attract, her ability to seduce. You know, Venus, in a sense, is seductress. And I also want to say it's like, in a sense, through our Venus that we manifest things. You know, I want to say that depending on where your Venus is, this can kind of portray or show you what kind of form or how you just manifest, you know. Because you know, she is all about attraction, magnetism, and things of that nature. So in a woman's chart, Venus would represent, like, in a sense, her feminine aspects. Like, these are the things about her that, you know, I want to say that she's proud of, in the sense of her femininity. Like, you know, and for instance, a woman who has her Venus in Taurus, and Venus, well, Taurus is like, in a sense, all about beauty, all about it's all about looking nice. It's all about sensuality, beauty, and things of that nature, you know. So a woman with her Venus in Taurus might have the tendency to be, you know, very beautiful, and also, fashionally speaking, she might know how to dress, you know. But yeah, you know, like, it ultimately shows, oh, in a woman, it shows her feminine traits, you know, because Venus is very feminine in that sense. But in a man's chart, men being masculine, we might tend to, you know, neglect our Venus, because that's like the feminine aspect of us, you know. With men, we relate more with our Mars, like, because Venus and Mars, in a sense, they go hand in hand, whereas Venus is Venus is like Venus is Venus is like the feminine, and then Mars is the masculine. But I'm like trying to go elaborate. You know, it's also like Venus. She represents like romance. You know, like taking someone on a beautiful day, and then and then, you know, spending time with her. I laugh because I think of Mars, and then Mars is more about, you know, getting down to like the bodily functions, or like, you know, Mars energy is raw. Like, Mars represents our sex drive, you know. So Mars isn't about taking her to the date and everything. It's more about taking her home and things of that nature, you know. Yeah, Mars pretty much is very raw in its energy, and it's very masculine, a masculine planet, you know. Meanwhile, Venus is more feminine, more receptive in a sense. I want to say Venus can also show our tolerance and patience. I say that, well, you know, that would be also the moon, and I want to say Mercury too. But I say that because, you know, Venus also gives us insight as to how we relate with others. This is how we approach relationships. This doesn't even have to be intimate relationships, you know, just relationships in general, like friendships and things of that nature. So in a synastry reading, or like a relationship reading, Venus and the place that Venus is at, like the placement of Venus, is very crucial and important for, like, you know, the success of the relationship, I guess you can say. So Venus loves to be in Taurus and Libra, as she rules those two signs. In Libra, she is more about, I want to say about like the balance in relationships, like the take and the give. But, you know, she's also about beauty and harmony. Yes, Venus is like she's very peace oriented, you know, like Venus, she's a peaceful planet. Meanwhile, her counter opposite, Mars, is the planet of war. So Venus is also exalted and happy in Pisces. This is when, you know, Pisces is like the sign of universal love. very Christ conscious in itself. You know, Pisces is ruled by Neptune, and Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. Neptune is the higher octave. Venus is more like the love of like lust and things of that nature. You know, Venus is more like it's also in a sense self-centered, like selfish, because Venus does represent pleasures, and it is indeed, you know, about lust, but not lust like Mars would be. Meanwhile, Neptune is more about the selfless love, which is universal. So Pisces is Venus is happy and exalted in Pisces. This is where Venus loves everything and all things. You know, like people who have their Venus and Pisces have the tendency to be very lovable. Like, not, yes, I want to say they can be lovable too, but what I mean to say is very loving, and they have a lot of love to give. But it can come to the point where, in a sense, they can be naive, and it's like, because, you know, the Pisces energy is very dreamlike. It's very in the fantasy world and things of that nature. So these are the people that might have the tendency to fall for Prince Charming or things of that nature, you know. So because it's exalted in Pisces, Venus has her downfall in Virgo. Because these people who have, you know, Venus and Virgo, they might have the tendency to be overly critical, you know, very nitpicky. Like they like analyze people, and they see their flaws in every fucking way. But it's like these people who have their Venus in Virgo. The Virgo energy is very committed, you know, very loyal. They're very nurturing, loving, and caring. Just like once this person finds the right one, then ta-da! Like Virgo and Venus isn't really a bad thing. But you know, that's like that's like Venus through the signs. Like, this is not what this video is about, right? Venus is also not so happy in Scorpio. The people who have their Venus in Scorpio can be interesting, but I think it's because I want to say Venus, in a sense, is a planet that's about relationship. It's about relating with others. When it's in Scorpio, it's in the dark. You know, it's not really relating with anyone in that sense. But you know, this has been my interpretation. Should I say interpretation, or just I'm just gonna say this has been Venus, right? This has been my take on Venus. I hope you guys enjoy. And like they say, namaste.